Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Jeff Mohr, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in theatrical releases, streaming, and video on demand horror movies. Each week, Doc Rotten, Crystal Cleveland, Dave Dreher, Christopher G. Mohr, and I will look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. This is us. It's the terrible trio, or the
wonderful trio.
Wonderful trio.
That's don't think terrible is no.
Okay. Wonderful trio. Well, I was
We're fabulous.
She was offended by that. How dare you call me terrible?
I'm more like fabulous. I think that's what you mean, sir.
Terrifying trio.
Oh, okay. I'll take that. That's fun.
Anyway, all right.
Terrifying.
I am.
So with me is Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl. Crystal, how you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. It's actually kind of fun to have just us three. Just, yeah.
Like talk amongst friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Three Stooges.
That's probably the closest to what we really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also with us is Christopher G. Mohr, award-winning filmmaker. How are you, Christopher?
Yep. I'm doing well. I think after watching this movie we're going to talk about, I need to see my chiropractor very soon.
Oh, I know.
All that bone cracking.
Oh, did you hear it?
Oh, stop. Oh,
yeah.
Ooh, don't do that.
No, it's good. There's nothing wrong with popping your knuckles.
No, I just don't like hearing it.
Your fingers would be all crooked.
You do know that was proven wrong, right? Like a doctor absolutely proved that it is not true. Popping your knuckles does not lead to arthritis. It is a fallacy. It is a lie.
We'll find that out in like 20 or 30 years.
He popped his knuckles every day. Every day for like 60 years or 70 years or something. And nothing.
And this has been the medical files on Gruesome Magazine.
Just call me Dr. Cleveland.
Our movie this week, calling Dr. Cleveland, Dr. Crystal Cleveland. Our movie this week is
Hello, Nurse.
The Bone Woman. HUESERA, The Bone Woman.
Very good.
2023 release from XYZ Films in selected theaters on February 10th and available on digital and on demand February 16th. So already out there. Synopsis is Valeria has long dreamed about becoming a mother. After learning that she's pregnant, she expects to feel happy. Yet something is off. Directed by Garza Cervera. Written by Garza Cervera, Abia, Castillo, and Patricio Saiz. Cast includes Mayra Batalla, Alfonso Dorsal, and Natalia Solya.
Okay, Doc. Good job. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm more than happy to have people correct me.
No, I love it. You know what? Let me tell you, nothing brings me more joy than when he mispronounces names. I just got to tell you, it is a thing. I look for it. I mean, I long for it, to be honest with you. And when he gets it right, I'm a little disappointed.
I'm not Doc. I'll try harder next time.
Well, you know what?
To give you some joy.
It's like when people pronounce giallo when it's giallo. It's just one. It's not all those syllables. So yes. So you never know. Yeah, Jello.
Okay.
Jello. Ooh, that sounds good.
Everything's better with Jello. So you know what? I think I'm going to start Christopher G. Mohr on this film. We're going to give our first impressions. Spoiler free, and then we will move into spoiler territory, and at the end of the episode we will give our scores from 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. So Christopher, what did you think of HUESERA?
I mean, I think it was competently shot. I think it's got some pretty good performances, but to be honest, I was very bored by this film. There's a lot of long drawn out shots. And as much as I don't like the sound of bone cracking type stuff, it felt like they'd seen Jacob's Ladder and they tried to incorporate that, but it didn't work as well as Jacob's Ladder did. You know what I mean? And then I'm not even sure what the point of the movie is. I mean, I understand the situation the main character is in, you know, trying to figure out where her life is, but then I throughout the whole thing, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of choices she makes that I'm not sure why she's making these choices, and then to possibly endanger her baby and stuff. So yeah, I think it had some interesting elements, especially when it comes to supernatural, I guess maybe witchcraft, maybe is what they did. But overall, I just found it to be, very, I don't know. It was so drawn out. I didn't really feel any kind of, it didn't really ramp up at the very end. It didn't really do all that stuff. It just, it took its time, like a slow boil. And it didn't really, by the end, I was like, okay, this is how it ends. I don't know. I found it to be very, it wasn't very impactful for me. So, and also you also have the element where they always have where, like when women are like pregnant and there's always a thing about postpartum or depression when you're pregnant and all that kind of stuff. So then I was kind of worried it was going in that situation where like, is it real? Is it not real? And so, so yeah, I don't know. I think, again, I thought it was shot well and it had some interesting elements, but I didn't think it worked.
Okay.
At least not for me.
All right. Crystal Cleveland, how about you? What were your first impressions of HUESERA, the Bone Woman?
Okay, so this is going to come across as kind of confusing. I need to say some stuff first. This movie was shot so well for me. A lot of times when you have dark movies, dark shots, they're not lit nearly as well and shot as well as this movie. So whoever did the cinematography knows how to shoot in dark lighting. I mean, it was really beautiful. It was well lit without having these fake lights on. I was just blown away by some of the cinematography. Some of the shots I really, really liked. And I feel like the acting was wonderful. That being said, this is a rough one. This movie is about horrible people living horrible lives. And that's a tough one for me. There's a few tough things here. I get it. This woman is clearly a lesbian, and she is trying to live a normal heteronormative relationship life. I don't really understand why, other than I guess maybe to have a child, which I guess in this day and age feels very odd to me. It doesn't really matter what her reasoning is, but I think what's happening to her is, basically a metaphor. It's a physical manifestation of what's happening inside, because she's kind of breaking inside. And I mean, she's not a good person because she's cheating and she's, I'm really kind of over the whole unreliable narrator. I'm over the whole women coming off as crazy, seeing things that aren't there. I mean, it was just very clearly she shouldn't be having children. She's just awful. She's horrible. Why is she around children at all? Like, I feel like the missed opportunity here and what they're trying to say is lost because the is she even a protagonist? I can't call her that because she's just a horrible person. She's just a bad person who's under the guise of being good. No, she's horrible. She's just a bad person. Like, I got tired of looking at her face at a point because I was like, it's what? She really made me sad. What's interesting about this movie is when she was more of a lesbian, she reminded me so much of myself. I mean, even like, because I grew up in Corpus and I hung around a lot of all gay bars, like when I was underage, and like I haven't heard the word maricon in so long, and I was like, oh my god, like because it's a bad word. It's the F word, in case you don't know. Not it's like the English cigarette F word, you know?
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, why would she just, I didn't understand her reasoning for, she had this life and she enjoyed her life and she just all of a sudden decided I couldn't understand her motivations here. She basically left all that behind so that she could live this quote unquote normal life, and it broke her and tore her up. I get it. It's just not my type of movie. That's not my thing. I like horror, and I like horror, and I don't like when someone is crazy or unstable or hurting themselves or hurting children because they're just not mentally. That's just not my type of horror I get into. So I get what they're doing. It's just not my thing. But I did like her Cure shirt. So she had this nice Cure shirt. Like, I'm like, yes. So I hate to say it, but the aesthetic of it is so good for me, you know? But yeah. Okay.
Alrighty. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I was enjoying this while I was watching it because I'm always interested in other cultures, and I was interested in the backdrop of the supernatural and these sort of ceremonies that they were trying to do to rid her of her problem. I'm not sure. I kind of went along with the whole thing. Maybe it was a metaphor of some kind, but you're right that I don't know, her family, her sister. I didn't see anything. It did seem to me like she went to try to fit the mold, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what's expected of me, so I'm going to try to do this. And it did seem like, in the opening scenes, she seemed genuinely happy about what they were doing and finding these things out. And so I think in terms of the God, I guess I shouldn't go that far. So she's haunted by something all the way through the movie, and she keeps trying all these things, and she waffles. She goes back to see her lesbian lover, and they try some ceremonies, and she just doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. She treats her sisters. You're right, Crystal. She doesn't seem like she should be having kids, at least not in her current mental state. So anyway, and I don't know. It's hard for me to keep going. I'm gonna kind of stop. I guess the sort of demons or whatever those things were that were haunting her, the bone cracking stuff, I liked. I thought that was cool. I thought that was well done and haunting in a way. I think I'm going to stop there because I just can't go any farther with that.
Spoilers. So now we're in spoilers. Yeah, so now you can go there.
Now we're in spoilers. So I don't know. I totally bought the whole supernatural thing of it. I understand there could be the unreliable narrator, and there's always that trade-off, right? What are we seeing? But I was kind of going along with that. But in the end, it seemed like it was just a metaphor for bringing out, like, the demons were her trying to live this life she shouldn't have been living.
Exactly.
And then when they finally rid her of those demons, she finally
got to be herself,
in the
and then
end,
she
right.
lost the life that she thought she wanted. Do you see how she was leaving?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So see, that was, and I get that, and I admire that. I get the story. I get it. It's just not my thing. It's just a lot of people will I think probably relate or like this. And like I said, I really like the way it was shot. I would have loved to have more of her little like rocker days. Like that's really where her head was all shaped. I was like, I think that was interesting. But like I said, it just reminded me of myself. So I agree. I like the finger breaking. I mean, but man, I guess the most likable character in this whole thing is the ex-girlfriend. It's sad. The ex-girlfriend and the husband, and those were the two that she's
Right.
just pooping on them both.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
honestly.
Well, but her husband did act like, well, I'm not no longer attracted to you because you have a baby inside of you. So I just found that to be kind of rude.
Well,
Which I can understand when people that
I think he was
happens to
probably
them.
worried. You know, I think a lot of guys are kind of weird about that.
Well, and that makes his case, but then that made me kind of understand it, you know, because sometimes that's also the problem when their respective others get pregnant. Sometimes their love or how they, you know, how that person and their attraction or kind of changes sometimes, and I think to me that opened up the door, I think, for her, you know, to look other places like her. Although I felt like she's probably more bisexual, I guess, because she seemed
No.
because well, I don't know.
Did
I
you
felt
see
I
the
felt
way?
I felt in the very beginning they
Did
felt
you
like a
see the
loving
way the
couple.
sex was? She was like, "Oh God, come on! Oh my
Well,
God!"
I felt the other sex scene
She was like-
felt very patent.
Yeah, she
It
was
didn't-
definitely she was doing it to accomplish something, not as
Well,
an
that was
enjoyable-
but again, well, but at the same time that happens in relationships and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
because we have to have sex now. As somebody that was in a relationship and tried to have kids, it becomes so methodical. It becomes less sex and more about we need to have sex
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
to have a kid. So to me, I just saw that as somebody that actually had to go through that process for a little while. I could relate to that. So I didn't really see that as had anything to do with her not being, you know, attracted to him sexually or whatever. But you know, but yeah, I don't know. I as much as I really don't think the story really did a really great job of doing what you guys said it was supposed to be. I just found her to be very, very selfish,
Oh, yeah.
uncaring individual. I don't even think she knows what she wants or whatever.
Well-
even if it is, because I don't know. I think by the end it just seemed kind of, I don't know, to go through that whole process, because having a child is not easy. To go through the whole process is like, I'm just going to walk away and just do whatever. I'm going to go out in the woods or do whatever. Just felt kind of extreme
Well,
by the end.
I didn't get it when I was watching it, but I'm looking back now, and maybe if I watched it again, I wouldn't think this either. But that these, you know, that so first we see the bone woman shows up, her legs. Well, first we see the one jump, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And their legs break, and then when the husband comes, there's nothing there. And then we see this. Apparently, the same woman is dragging herself with these broken bones sticking out of her skin and stuff. And in hindsight, I'm thinking that's her choices haunting her, you know, and ruining, you know, screwing everything up basically. But I certainly didn't get it at the time. I'm always going for the supernatural when I get a choice. I'd rather.
Well, I think that it was supernatural in the movie, but it's just, I think it's just really a metaphor for. But here's another thing. This does kind of agree with Christopher that the husband's not so great, because you know that your wife has said that she's seen this. Why would anyone leave her alone with the baby?
Especially when she's not even looking at the baby. I just thought that to be kind of odd. I think if
Yeah.
you
You don't look at the
caring,
baby. Okay. Well,
I would force family members to stay with her, because I couldn't trust her being around.
Absolutely. You know, it just kills me when you hear these stories of these women that hurt their children. And yet, let me tell you, at every turn, they spoke out. They said things. There were signs. It was blaringly obvious that but yet people are like, oh, no, they'd never do that. They'd never hurt. Listen to what's happening. Because come on, so sad. Like at that moment I was like, I hate her. I hate her.
And I don't know. And I think, again, we all watch a movie and we kind of take away our own thought process. The one thing I was kind of worried it was trying to say that by her giving in to her sort of like, I guess, lesbian, the way, her sexual tendencies or whatever, I felt like they were saying that had something to do with the evil that was encroaching in her life. And I was kind of worried. It's like, oh, I hope we're not going in that direction, but I don't know. I felt the way that it kind of attempted to deal with that was kind of murky and didn't really make a lot of sense by the end. Because I don't know. I think as much as I'd like to sort of say what you guys were saying, I don't really see a lot of that, even with the whole sort of orgy bodies with no faces and
oh yeah,
cracking bones. It didn't. I don't know. I'm sure maybe that's what they meant by it, but I don't know. For me, it just didn't work. It felt kind of, to be honest, it felt kind of disingenuous. It felt like I felt like, oh, I saw this worked really cool in Jacob's Ladder, so we're going to incorporate it. I mean, granted, there were some moments that were kind of creepy. I think there was one part where you see go in the background and things like that kind of worked, but then the whole thing at the end just felt kind of stupid.
I feel like the end was weird. Agreed, big time, because what happened? What happened? Why is she okay now, or is she not okay, and that's why she decided to leave?
Well,
that's what I'm. That part was not explained.
But then it's like, there was one point where her mother-in-law was like reading that book, and she falls asleep, and then she's in the club, and I'm like, at first I was like, is this real? Did she go there, or was she dreaming it? You know what I mean? So even things like that, I felt kind of off-putting. It didn't really help the main narrative, because then it just made me question what is real and what is not, because then it's like, but yeah, I think the whole thing of maybe the evil part of her was getting burnt off.
I don't know. It's weird.
Again, it didn't.
That part was confusing to me, because I thought, at first I thought, did she die? Is she not actually really there? Because they don't really interact. Like, she just packs her bags and walks out. There's nothing. He doesn't even look at her. If you watch that scene.
I hope it's not like a Sixth Sense thing.
But I don't think that's what it was. I'm just saying it's possible that it could be.
Well, it felt like a happy resolution, happy, a good resolution to me, because the lights, it was light. And colorful, I think. And she was smiling, and he was, but you're right. I didn't even think about that. That was kind of weird.
Well, she's just toxic. She just is not happy with herself, or what. And like Christopher said, she doesn't know what she wants. She couldn't make a decision, and so sad. Like, that's why it's hard to like this movie, though. If you don't have someone to root for, there's not really much of a point.
That scene when she's when her husband's off working and she's with that kid, and
my God,
that doesn't really, the kid's screaming. I was like,
the dog too. I was like, is no one gonna like? I was like, is she really just this lazy? She's just sitting there.
She didn't want to do anything.
Yeah, I was like,
and apparently the baby was in the refrigerator overnight.
I guess so. I don't know.
Is okay.
Well, unless the guy called, like, she fell asleep for like a few minutes and something.
Right,
I really don't think the baby would be okay.
All right. Well, let's close this up. And I think, Christopher, you went first, correct? Let's go with our Final score 1 to 5, and favorite scene for HUESERA.
Well, like I said, I think it's very competently shot, you know, and it almost felt like they just dropped us into these areas with all the different family members. It felt very realistic.
Yeah.
But I didn't really like the way the story was told and how it played out. I think it's very confusing, and I think I think as the movie went along, I just cared less about the main character. I just wanted her to get her away from that kid. So I'll give it a.
Oh, this is interesting.
I'll
It's
give it a
tough one.
2.75.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
I think it's above average, and I think it's shot really well. I was bored to tears throughout most of this because it's so drawn out for no reason. So, but yeah, and as for favorite scene, I'll say when she sees that person across the way,
The jumper.
the jumper, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Alrighty.
That's why I always have nicknames
That was
for
a good
this.
scene. That was a good scene.
Although if I see somebody creepy looking at me from across the way, I'm not going to wave. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
I
go back
know.
on my house. That's just me.
Actually, I would usually hide behind the curtain so they don't know I'm watching. I want to make sure the lights are out so they can't see in. Yeah, I'm super weird. I'm like, nah. I'm gonna be the creeper here.
Especially after the Watcher. If you remember that.
Okay. So, Crystal, what's your score? 1 to 5, and favorite scene for HUESERA.
Okay, so I'm gonna give it a 3. I understandably a little higher than Christopher, just because I related a little bit more to it. But it's definitely. I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. I'd recommend it for a couple of my friends because I think they'd really enjoy it. But most of them would be like, ugh, why'd you do this to me? And my favorite scene is, while she's sleeping and the ankle or leg break, like that was creepy. Like I like the way it like came out and it was like, and then she screams. But see, that's another thing. The husband knew it. It's like, dude, so many signs.
All righty. I, too, am going to give this a 3, mostly for the cinematography, the setting, production design, and the acting. I thought was really good. And I dug the whole concept of this, like, I guess, the bone woman thing, but didn't quite carry it off. And yeah, you're right. It gets frustrating when there's signs, but that's the way people are. I mean, I can't tell you how many of these. I watch too many true crime shows, but I can't tell you how many times there's like, what the hell are you doing? This guy is going to, they start talking about all the things this person did before they killed somebody, and you're going,
So obvious. I know.
yeah. So, I mean, that stuff happens. She didn't kill anybody, at least we know of. I preferred the supernatural and the happy ending interpretation, but this is one that will probably make you think.
Yeah.
In terms of favorite scene, Christopher took mine. So, I guess I'm going to say the baby in the refrigerator because I'm just
it shocked. I was like, oh my God.
We know she gets up in the middle of the night.
My
and she does
stomach
something
dropped.
with the baby because you can't, all of a sudden you can't hear the baby anymore. And she gets a phone call, wakes her up, and she freaks out. She's running around looking for the baby, looking in every cupboard. It just was crazy. Okay. A lot of tension there.
Yeah.
All right. So, HUESERA, The Bone Woman. Check it out on, I guess it's at limited select theaters right now, and then digital and on demand starting, it'll be tomorrow, February 16th.
Yep.
All righty. Well, thank you both. And let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Gruesome Magazine.